You probably think brushing your teeth is a modern invention, a chore you repeat twice a day to keep your dentist from lecturing you. But humans have been obsessed with oral hygiene for thousands of years, long before the invention of the plastic bristle or the tube of minty paste. The story of how we learned to clean our mouths isn't a tidy one. It is a messy, chaotic, and occasionally violent history of survival. To understand why we brush, we have to look at what happened when humans stopped being hunter-gatherers and started farming. For most of human history, our ancestors had remarkably straight, healthy teeth. This isn't because they were geniuses at dental care. It's because their diet was mostly lean meat, wild nuts, and fibrous plants. They didn't have refined sugars. They didn't have processed flour. Their jaws were wide, their teeth had plenty of room, and their diet was essentially a natural abrasive that kept their mouths clean. Then, about 10,000 years ago, everything changed. We discovered agriculture. We started growing wheat, barley, and rice. We began processing grains. Suddenly, our diet was full of fermentable carbohydrates. These starches break down into sugars, which provide a feast for the bacteria living in our mouths. Bacteria produce acid. Acid eats enamel. For the first time in human evolution, dental decay became a rampant problem. Ancient humans didn't have toothpaste, but they weren't walking around with black, rotting mouths. They were resourceful. Evidence suggests that as far back as the prehistoric era, humans used chew sticks. This was the original toothbrush. It was simple. You take a twig, you fray one end by chewing on it, and you use the fibrous bristles to scrub your teeth. It sounds primitive, but it was surprisingly effective. In fact, some cultures still use them today. In parts of Africa and the Middle East, the miswak stick is still a primary tool for oral hygiene. It comes from the Salvadora persica tree. Scientists have analyzed it and found it contains natural fluoride, silica, and antimicrobial compounds. It's a toothbrush, a toothpick, and a mouthwash all rolled into one. But as civilization grew more complex, so did our desire for a cleaner smile. Move forward to 3500 BCE in ancient Babylonia and Egypt. They were the first to really formalize dental care. They used frayed twigs, but they added something new, rudimentary pastes. The Egyptians were truly ahead of their time. They are credited with the first known recipe for toothpaste, discovered on a papyrus scroll. They mixed rock salt, mint, dried iris flowers, and pepper. It was likely incredibly abrasive. If you brushed your teeth with that today, you'd probably strip your enamel off in a week. But for them, it was the only way to combat the grit of bread made with stone ground flour, which often contained tiny fragments of sand and rock. The Chinese took it a step further. By 1600 BCE, they were using aromatic tree branches to freshen their breath. But the biggest innovation happened around the year 1498 in China. This is widely considered the invention of the first bristle toothbrush. They took the stiff, coarse hairs from the back of a hog's neck and attached them to a handle made of bone or bamboo. It sounds absolutely disgusting to us now. Imagine scrubbing your teeth with dead pig hair. But it worked. The stiffness of the hog hair was perfect for removing plaque. When travelers brought this design back to Europe, it hit a major roadblock. European aristocrats found the hog hair far too harsh for their delicate gums. They replaced the boar bristles with softer horsehair, which was much gentler but significantly less effective at actually cleaning. So, for centuries, the dental health of the average European was abysmal. During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the prevailing medical theory was that disease was spread by miasma, or foul air. This meant that while people were obsessed with smelling good, they didn't necessarily care about the health of their teeth. They used toothpicks made of silver, gold, or bird quills. They would rub their teeth with linen cloths soaked in salt or vinegar. They thought that if they couldn't see the dirt, the tooth was clean. The 18th century brought the first real shift toward modern dentistry. A French surgeon named Pierre Fauchard, often called the father of modern dentistry, published a book in 1728 called The Surgeon Dentist. He was the first to debunk the myth that a toothworm caused decay. He realized that it was sugar. He recommended cleaning teeth with a sponge or a cloth and advised against using acidic mouthwashes that damaged the enamel. Yet, even in the 1800s, brushing was an elite habit. Most people still just used a rag or their own fingers. The invention of the modern toothbrush, as we recognize it, didn't happen until 1938. Everything changed with the invention of nylon. DuPont, a chemical company, had been experimenting with synthetic fibers. When they applied them to a toothbrush handle, they created the miracle tuft. It was sanitary, it was cheap, and it was infinitely durable. Suddenly, the brush your teeth movement could go global, but it actually took a world war to make it a standard daily ritual. During World War II, the United States military insisted that soldiers maintain strict oral hygiene. They issued thousands of nylon toothbrushes and tubes of toothpaste to troops in the field. When those soldiers returned home, they didn't stop the habit. They brought the practice into their homes, taught their children, and turned the simple act of brushing into an American cultural imperative. By the 1950s, the toothpaste industry was booming, and fluoride, a natural mineral, was added to the formula. This was a game changer. Fluoride actively remineralizes teeth and strengthens the enamel, effectively reversing the early stages of decay. Since its widespread introduction, the rate of dental cavities in the general population has plummeted. So, why are we still so obsessed with it? Because we are stuck in a biological mismatch. Our teeth evolved for a Stone Age diet, but our modern environment is a sugary, processed nightmare. We are effectively fighting a war against our own biology. Every time we eat a chocolate bar or drink a soda, we are handing victory to the bacteria that have evolved alongside us for millions of years. We have come a long way from the frayed twigs of the ancient Babylonians and the horsehair bristles of the 18th century. We have electric toothbrushes that use sonic vibrations to disrupt plaque and apps that track how long we spend brushing our molars. We have turned oral hygiene into a multi-billion-dollar industry of gels, flosses, and whitening treatments. But consider this: if we lived as our ancestors did, eating fibrous, raw foods and avoiding refined sugars, would we even need the toothbrush? We have created an entire technological ecosystem to fix a problem we largely created for ourselves through the evolution of our food. We brush our teeth not because it is a natural human behavior, but because we have built a world that is fundamentally incompatible with the anatomy we were born with. We are living in an era where we have more control over our health than any generation in human history. Yet, every morning and every night, we stand in front of a mirror, picking up a piece of plastic and synthetic fiber, performing a ritual that keeps our bodies from falling apart. The next time you brush your teeth, realize that you aren't just cleaning your mouth, you are participating in a 10,000-year-old struggle to keep pace with our own progress. You are fighting the consequences of the agricultural revolution every single day. Perhaps the most fascinating part of this story isn't the technology, but the fact that the basic goal has remained identical for 10 millennia. We just want to keep the things in our heads that allow us to eat, speak, and smile. We have evolved, we have invented, and we have refined, but the simple act of scrubbing away the debris of our daily lives remains one of the most consistent, universal, and essential human rituals in existence. What we do tomorrow depends on what we eat today, and what we eat today we will have to brush away tonight. It is an endless cycle, a constant battle of biology versus convenience, and as long as we keep eating the way we do, the toothbrush, no matter how many gadgets we attach to it, will remain the most important tool in our survival kit.